If you feel stuck right now, I want to say something up front. It is probably not because you are lazy. It's probably not because you are unmotivated. It is definitely not because you are incapable. Most of the time, when people feel stuck, it is because something is unclear. You know you need to move. You know you need to decide, but every option feels heavy, foggy, or emotionally charged. So, in this video, I want to walk you through how I actually gain clarity when I feel stuck. Not motivation, not hype, clarity. Because clarity is something you can manufacture. You do not have to wait for it to appear. A lot of people think clarity is a feeling, a personality trait, or something confident people naturally have. For me, clarity is a process. When I feel unclear, I assume there is something I have not yet defined, named, or externalized. And once I do that, the next step usually becomes obvious. The first place I start is with emotion. Before I ask, what should I do? I ask, what am I feeling? Am I afraid? Am I anxious? Am I overwhelmed? Am I avoiding something quietly? A lot of confusion is actually unnamed emotion. Fear and excitement feel almost identical in the body. Anxiety and anticipation can feel the same. Until you name what you're feeling, any decision you make will feel forced or wrong. And one question I return to often is, what am I afraid will happen if I move forward? And sometimes I go one step further. If the worst did happen, what would I do next? That question alone often reduces the emotional weight of the decision. This is where fear setting comes in. What is the worst realistic outcome? Not the imagined catastrophe, but the realistic one. If that happened, how would you recover? What options would you still have? Then I flip the question. What is the best possible outcome here? And does the upside outweigh the downside? A lot of people stay stuck because they exaggerate the downside and minimize the upside. When you put both on the table, clarity starts to form. Many things feel heavy because they are vague. Vague problems drain energy. Defined problems create momentum. This is why journaling works. This is why talking out loud works. This is why even explaining your problem to someone else can suddenly make it feel manageable. The goal is not to solve everything at once. The goal is to turn everything into parts. Once something has parts, you can work on it. I experienced this recently with my PhD. I needed to recruit more people to interview, and the task felt oddly heavy. Not impossible, just draining. So I broke it down. I decided to recruit participants via LinkedIn because it made validation easier and so saved me time down the line. Then I asked a very simple question. What does success actually look like in numbers? If my response rate was about 10%, then to get 10 participants, I needed to message 100 people. That one realization alone changed everything. Now the problem was no longer how do I find participants? It became how many people do I message per day? What scripts do I use? What do I say if they say yes? And what do I say if they say no? I set a goal to message 10 people a day. I realized I would need to grow my network to message people for free or use LinkedIn Premium strategically. The fog lifted. But here's the part that really mattered. Even with the plan, it still felt emotionally heavy. So I asked a different question. Who would actually be interesting for me to speak to beyond just ticking the research box? That's when I realized I wanted to speak to other voiceover artists as well. Not only would they be relevant for the research, but I would also learn things that would benefit me personally as a voiceover artist. The task became lighter. And that is when I realized something important. Sometimes clarity is layered. You don't just need to have a plan. You also need a process that feels meaningful enough to sustain. This is where frameworks become incredibly useful. Frameworks give you structure when your thinking feels scattered. A few I return to often. The 5 whys. This helps you uncover what you actually want, not just what you think you want. So you just ask yourself why 5 times until you get to the real reason why you want something. Then there's the 80-20 thinking. What small set of actions is driving most of your results? Think about that. It'll be very important for you to decide where you should be focusing your effort. Then there's the one thing question. What is the one thing you can do such that everything else becomes easier or irrelevant? And another one of my favorites, what would this look like if it were easy? That question alone often reveals unnecessary complexity. Subtraction matters. Does this even need to exist? Should it be delegated, deferred, or deleted? Many clarity problems are really priority problems in disguise. Another framework I find very useful is the Odyssey Plan. You imagine 3 futures. First, what does your life look like if you continue on your current path for the next 5 years? Second, what would you do if your current path was no longer available to you? And then third, what would you do if money and other people's opinions were no object? This exercise separates what you actually want from what you feel obligated to want. It removes the expectation from the equation, and that creates a different level of clarity. One reason so many people feel stuck is because they are waiting for clarity before they act. They want certainty, confidence, or a fully formed plan. But very often, clarity comes after action, not before it. When you stay in your head, everything feels quite heavy. Every option feels risky. Nothing has been tested, so your mind fills the gaps with fear. Action changes that. Even a small step turns a vague problem into something real. You get feedback. You learn what feels lighter, what drains you, and what actually matters. Here's an example. Imagine someone who knows they want to create content, but they feel overwhelmed. They're stuck choosing a platform, a niche, a format, and a message, so they do nothing. A clarity through action approach would be this. Commit to posting 1 short video a day for 7 days on one platform. No optimization, no long-term commitment. By day 3, clarity starts to emerge. They realize they enjoy talking to the camera more than writing. They notice which topics feel natural and which feel forced. They see what kind of responses energize them. None of that information would be available before they started. The action didn't solve everything, but it narrowed the field. And narrowing that field is a form of clarity. If you're feeling stuck right now, ask yourself this. What is one small but reversible action I could take that would give me information? You don't need the whole path. You just need enough movement to learn something real. Clarity is often not a thought. It is a response to motion. Here's the key insight I want to leave you with. Different types of confusion require different clarity tools. If the emotional weight is high, start with emotion. If the decision feels scary, use fear setting. If you feel overwhelmed, externalize your thoughts. If you feel mentally scattered, use frameworks. If you're stuck despite thinking, take action. There's no single path to clarity. One practical thing you can try today is either journaling or talking it out. Journaling is accessible and powerful. AI tools can also help by asking you better questions than you might ask yourself. Used very well, they act as thinking partners, not decision makers. The goal is not answers. The goal is better questions. If you feel stuck, know that you're not broken. You do not lack discipline. You just lack clarity in a specific layer. If this resonated, I would love to hear from you. What are you stuck on right now? What decision feels heavier than it should? Leave a comment or write it out today. Sometimes clarity begins the moment you stop carrying it alone. Now, I have a little goodie for you. Check the pinned comment or the description to find out what it is. And in the meantime, you might want to check out one of these videos that will appear on your screen. The algorithm thinks you'll like it, and I think so too. All right, I'll catch you in the next one.